Hey everybody. It got super
Hi, Sam.
quiet.
It did. It did. Sorry, we were just waiting for you, Sam, to join us, and then we felt like life
Well,
was now complete.
I
It is a
usually have this
circle.
effect when I walk into a room. A hush falls over the
You know,
place.
In awe.
clergy are known to be conversation killers, basically.
Yeah, invite them to the
Wow.
party.
Oh, I can't use the language I usually want to. I can't use the language I usually want to when there's a pastor around. That really ruins it.
It's so true, actually.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking about, Sam.
Even in
I've had,
college,
I,
people do that with theology majors. I've had people like turn down the music if I'm in the car with them and be like, "Oh, sorry, we just figured this would be offensive."
Oh my word.
Mm-hmm.
that's crazy.
Now it
I had
does
a, gr-
work. Go ahead, Sam.
I had a group of people I used to go mountain biking with who I never told I was a pastor. And when they found out, they were really angry at me
Mm-hmm.
because they definitely spoke in ways they may have not spoken if they knew I was a pastor.
Now it does work to your advantage at times because it's like when it's time to clear the table at the end of the day. Can the servant of the Lord wait on tables? That's what it says in the book of Acts. I'm like if I it doesn't go over very well.
That did not go well. No.
Oh man.
All right, just
Yeah.
it's
Hey,
on
we have
Facebook
clear
now.
air.
So
We have clear air over here this morning. This is a beautiful thing.
Great. We
We're
had a bit
Portland
of an
all washed
earthquake
out
last
too.
night,
you had an earthquake
full
last night.
4.8 nearby. Um, to add to the 2020
The
apocalypse.
list of things. Yeah.
Wow. Was there any damage or anyone hurt?
I haven't read this morning about damage or anyone hurt, but it was serious enough that everyone started checking in with each other, even though it was about 11:30 at night.
Wow. That's not fun, man. That's not fun. I would not be in favor of that. I would vote against that. No earthquakes. No pestilence, no famine. I would move all away from that. So, do you get damage with a scale of 4? Do people have suffer damage like their houses and thing, or
So if you Google this, about 5 is where you
physical
start getting a lot
damage?
of property damage. Yeah.
But there is damage though, right? Because people feel it, right?
I imagine so. I mean, it was strong enough to shake. I actually took a look at my shelves thinking, is this, am I safe? Should I look for a bed or a doorway?
So I'm wondering,
Dan
like,
Ferguson just put, yeah.
which
go ahead,
parts
Lisa.
of the country haven't had like a major weather disaster so far? Like, I mean, we had a tornado in the spring. There's people with the fires. I'm just kind of checking geographically who's due. My sister in Destin, Florida, their kids missed a week of school because the storm just sat there for so long, dumping so much rain, the school buses couldn't run. They've never missed school for a week because of a tropical storm coming through. And it's
Hmm.
just sat there in the Gulf for so long. So I'm just, who else? Who else is due? What's happened to the Northeast? Are they due for something? Snow, apocalypse, something? Just curious.
Um,
Who's up for 2020 weather?
I know in the Pacific Northwest we're over it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yes. we're over it too. We're still doing tornado damage.
After the tornado, Lisa, our home there in Chattanooga, we had lightning hit the roof and 2 soccer ball sized holes in the roof and all kinds of stuff blown up inside. It was crazy.
Oh,
Oh my
sorry.
goodness.
Yeah, it was fixable. Nobody was hurt, but wow.
hmm,
These are the things we
Hmm.
say. Yeah.
That's
I tell
true.
myself right now, my friends and I, when we're doing these, can you believe this just happened? What else? 2020. And part of the, I think, healthiness of that is to say, we need to tell ourselves the true things that are good as well as the true things that are bad. Like there's a lot of true disasters to talk about in 2020. And then there's a lot of true things that are true for my life and true for your life and true for a world that we also have to tell ourselves. So we have to tell ourselves the truth about what is real in my life. And what is real in my life is I have people who love me and I am secure right now. And there's work that I get to do. And those are true things that I get to live out in my body, because we're not humanly set up to dealing with all of the true things that are also disasters globally, like psychologically. Just my note to myself.
So true.
Truth.
So true.
I don't think we are. I don't think it's actually the way we were wired. I agree. Oh, it's good. It's good. I'm excited about this morning. I love this psalm. I was listening to Matt Redman's song again this morning, and then I realized how old it is. I was like, wow, time flies by.
For those that don't know the reference, Matt Redman has a famous praise chorus that was written based on this psalm in the last third of the psalm, and you may recognize that when we get to it here, and when Katie's going to read it to us here in a couple minutes, and when we get to that section, you may.
I take it we're not going to sing it.
Because that went so well the first time.
In the heavenly courts, we'd rather be in the heavenly courts than somewhere else.
Just verifying.
Yeah.
We should try it again. Come on, I'm game.
Yeah, you lead it, Sam, and I'll
This
leave
one-
at that point.
It's not like this one's way easier than the last time we tried, right, Joyce?
Oh my goodness. I tell you, that illustrated perfectly just how much delay there is in these Zoom webinars and meetings. And boy, it gave me a huge appreciation for what is going on in music ministry and the cool music things that are happening out there via technology, because I don't know how they do it, but it's certainly a lot better than our attempt to sing side by side together. That was epic.
Meldra is suggesting you just do a solo, Joyce, and we could all enjoy that.
Actually,
Yes.
We would
that's
enjoy
fine.
that.
Second
You
that,
do a solo,
Meldra.
and I could do the lyrics.
There you go. I'll sign language it.
Okay.
Maybe we should have a little vote here in the chat, and we'll vote which panelist should sing the solo. We could kind of, and just see
tuning myself.
where that comes down. Yeah.
Yeah, Japhet's trying to X out of that one, and I don't know. I'd love to hear him do "Bitter as One Day."
I was actually a boy soprano when I was a kid, and I was really I loved it. It was so much fun. I used to sing in choirs when I was so at school. I went to public schools pretty much all my life other than 1 year, and this school in London, the teacher said, I was like 7 years old, who wants to sing? And who wants to sing? And so I put my hand up, and I was like, yes, this is what I do all the time at church, at home. This would be fun. And she was kind of blown away that kids could sing. It was great.
My public singing career ended when I was probably 13 or 14, and I still have horrible memory. My parents are watching, so they're going to be like, oh, we didn't know we inflicted this on you. And they had gotten 3 boys my age, and I was one of the 3, to sing at Christmas, We Three Kings of Orient Are. And I remember, first of all, the horrors of memorizing it, I was panicked. And then the double horror of realizing that I was the king that was always searching for the right note, right? And the 3 kings brought gifts. The 3 kings brought gifts. They did not sing publicly. To me, it's an abuse of the scriptures. Why would you? It's not, and there's not even 3 kings, right? I mean, so the whole thing should never have happened because it was completely not cool theologically. Wrong. It was a mess.
How do you know
the apostasy?
Poetry and metaphor.
Oh, you!
How do you know
Americans
didn't
you Americans need that song though, so that you could go and knock on people's doors at Christmas time?
Yeah.
And ask them.
Mary sang.
Yeah.
Mary sang. The wise men brought gifts. I'm just saying. That's what it says.
Logically, though, they may have brought gifts. We know they did, but does it mean they didn't sing?
Joyce, you're bringing all kinds of like, this is not okay where you're taking this. Maybe they juggled, Joyce. I don't know. Maybe it doesn't say they didn't.
Right?
So maybe they did. Maybe they told jokes for hours on end, and the little baby laughed, and it was funny. And it's where Jesus got his rich sense of humor, which I so wish that humor translated across time, which it doesn't, because it seems like there's so many great zingers in there.
Tim Blackwelder said that there may have been a donkey.
I'm not sure where that's going, but I don't like it. So, yes. So I actually think that Joyce should save us with a prayerful transition followed by Katie's reading of the full text, and then I'm going to lay out kind of a roadmap of where we'll go. So why don't we rescue ourselves?
Before Joyce prays, a few people asked this week, and they said, "Could you introduce everybody?" Since they're like, I don't know who everybody is. And I forgot to tell you that.
So,
do you want to do that before or after prayer?
Joyce is going to pray.
Yeah.
And save us, definitely. Okay.
All right, let's pray. Father, thank you for this Sabbath day. You knew long before we did that we would need a Sabbath, and how grateful we are for it each and every week, a chance to pause, reflect, and worship. And we're doing it differently these days than we have for so long, and yet we're finding that there is still meaning and connectivity and, yes, humor in all of that. And as we study Psalm 84 today, we can't help but wonder, how have you heard this music over all of the centuries? How has this landed on your ear? And now, how can we investigate and dig into this psalm and make it music that lands on your ear today in a way that pleases you and blesses you and glorifies you? So to that end, please bless our time here together, these people from all over the world, as we dig into this mischievous music. We ask all this, we ask all this in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Thank you. So a little bit of an introduction then, which is a good idea, and then Katie. So Katie will introduce herself last, and then she can move right into the text. My name is Alex Bryan. I live in College Place, Washington, USA. And I went for a walk this morning, and the air was relatively clear, and it was a good thing.
My name is Japhet de Oliveira. I live in I live in Dacona, Colorado, and I actually cooked beets this morning really early. I got up at 4 this morning, and then I made all the beets that I need, and Becky told me about how to do it, and so I tried it. So I shaved all of them, and I cut them into little cubes that they're all exactly the same size, each cube, and then I cooked it for 2.5 hours, and I can't wait to eat some of those beets at lunchtime.
I'm Lisa Diller, and I'm in Chattanooga, Tennessee, where it's autumn this morning. We also went for a walk in our neighborhood. And when I'm not here at Saltworks, I get to teach college students about history and figure out how to use Zoom for teaching.
Hi, I'm Joyce Newmyer. Oh, sorry. I was waiting for Sam, but decided that he wanted to be last. So I'll introduce myself. I'm Joyce Newmyer, and I work with Adventist Health. I am calling in today from Happy Valley, Oregon, a suburb of Portland. And first we were on fire, and then it was thunderstorm and lightning. And now I'm trying to figure out if we have smoke or if it's just kind of like drizzle that is more typical of Portland than the fire. So I have no idea what's going on with our weather, but I'm happy to be here.
Sam.
Okay, yes. My name is Sam, as has already been said a couple of times. I am in Riverside, California. I am a pastor and I work with a bunch of people on the Zoom call right now. I love scripture, and I love studying with you, and I love Sabbath. And it doesn't matter what's happening in the sky or the little earthquake we had last night, the little shake. It's good that it's Sabbath. That's what I'm excited about today.
All right. My name is Katie Wagner. I just graduated from college, and I work at Adventist Health Portland with several of these people on the call. And I'm currently in College Place, but I live in Portland. So, and now I will be reading Psalms 84. Good transition, right? Seamless. How lovely is your dwelling place, Lord Almighty. My soul yearns, even faints, for the courts of the Lord. My heart and my flesh cry out for the living God. Even the sparrow has found a home, and the swallow a nest for herself, where she may have her young, a place near your altar. Lord Almighty, my King and my God. Blessed are those who dwell in your house. They are ever praising you. Blessed are those whose strength is in you, whose hearts are set on pilgrimage. As they pass through the valley of Baca, they make it a place of springs. The autumn rains also cover it with pools. They go from strength to strength till each appears before God in Zion. Hear my prayer, Lord God Almighty. Listen to me, God of Jacob. Look on our shield, O God. Look with favor on your anointed one. Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked. For the Lord God is a sun and a shield. The Lord bestows favor and honor. No good thing does he withhold from those whose walk is blameless. Lord Almighty, blessed is the one who trusts in you.
Thank you, Katie. So the last couple of weeks we have encountered Psalms that would be, I would categorize in the more famous Psalms. And this is certainly one of those that is popular. It's music has been written about it, as Japhet touched on earlier. It is a place we go to with some regularity. So I want to map out maybe our conversation so that we can kind of have a sense of where we might go. And I'm going to break the psalm into 3 parts. So we'll try to kind of work our way through those 3 stanzas. The first of the 3 is the first 4 verses, which deal with the subject of home. So if you look back at the passage wherever you are, and you look at that, it's basically a cry for, a longing for home and place. Okay? And what's interesting is that really, if you look at the whole of Scripture, and here I'm thinking about the Christian scriptures, all the way from Genesis, where you have a story of human beings being expelled from home. Okay, that's the whole story, is that they were home, and now they're not at home anymore. And basically, you look at the whole of Scripture. It's basically this pilgrimage, this status as being a refugee, if you will, until you get to Revelation, where there's this amazing line where God has made his home with people. And some of you remember that phrase. So kind of like the hope of the future. Sometime down there, sometime, we're going to be in a place where God once again makes his home with people. So I'm not working to overgeneralize the scriptures, but I do think you have a macro theme here of being displaced from a secure place of home, a hope that one day we will once again be in a secure place of home, and now you have this longing of wanting to be in the home of God, at home with God, in this place of security. Clearly in this passage, you have specific allusions to being in the temple courts, going to Jerusalem, to Zion, the holy city, this sense that this is symbolically and in a real way God's house. But it feeds into this much larger narrative of a desire to be at home. And of course, even in the ministry of Jesus, you have this fascinating tug of war about who has the right to be home and you think about the turning over the tables in the temple, all the arguments about who gets to belong and who doesn't belong, should laws be created to prevent people from being included or not. This is just a major theme. So I just want to lay that out and then get some reflections here from my conversation partners. But I looked at the Psalm as I have before, Psalm 84, and I see really ripping open this macro narrative of our understanding of the human experience and where we are and where we hope to be. So who wants to dive in? I see that in these first few verses.
I'm a huge fan of home. I love home. And I think that we underestimate how fantastic home is until you are away. And so I think we take some things for granted, and they are our home, our space, whatever it may be. And I think that's the way we feel about church as well. That we kind of like, it's there every week and we've got it, but now it's been vacant and empty. We missed that home. And I think this Psalm for me, he's talking about how lovely is that place. I mean, they're not going to go to a temple and sit down in pews. They're going to a space where they're going to be with others and with God. And there's a certain level of joy that's just hard to describe what that's like. But yeah, I'm with you, Alex. I think that home should be a constant reminder in ourselves of what we actually enjoy.
I struggle a little bit because my home growing up was full of people who were not my immediate family. So we had tons of people living with us for short or long term for most of all of my childhood and young adulthood. It was just crazy nuts all the time. And it was home, and I felt it was home, and we had rituals and traditions, and, it was still very much our family's home. Now I don't have anyone living with me except for my husband. Like, I have not chosen. I definitely felt like if you did not engage in the ministry of Isaiah 58 as a child, if you did not take in the poor that are cast out, if you did not have people living with you who needed a place to live, that were escaping danger, you really weren't probably a good Christian as a kid. Like, I looked at other people in my church, I totally judged them. Like, there would just be 4 people living in their house. Like, they could sit down to kind of quiet meals. The cleanup was easy. Like, I really did not understand how you could be following Jesus. Now I am grateful that you can follow Jesus and not have to have a lot of people living in your house. But what I'm getting at here within both the passage and what you said, Japhet, is home can be, I feel like there's sort of 2 ways of thinking about home. One is the place where I feel safe and comfortable, and I just don't have to worry about anything else. I could just rest, and it feeds me, and this is where I'm at. Versus the home that I also see here, that you're talking about, like God's home, where other people are and you're sharing with others, and your hospitality and welcoming in and bringing in people and loving on them in that kind of space. Both of those, I think, are important elements of home. And I see the one in here that is hospitable. And I know it's also probably a safe and nurturing, a comforting place. I will always, because my sister likes to say, child years are like dog years. She's like, you already gave a ton of your life, like times it all by 7, to like, having, hitchhikers and runaway families from domestic abuse and foster children and everybody else in your home. And so, that nesting thing that Jack just brought up, and that is a nice care thing, that nest was pretty broad and lots of other people were in it. And so home has both boundaries. And again, I think my parents, we had rituals, we had rules, there were expectations for people who were in the home. It wasn't like that it was constant chaos. It did feel a little bit like that sometimes. But for me, that's not something, like, I can have people in for a limited time, but they're not living with me. And so anyway, both of those elements, the hospitality where you bring people in, and also the retreat away from everybody else, are both elements of home for me.
It's like the Rolling Stones, right? Wherever we lay our hat, that's our home. We just have to find a good place to be able to lay our hat. I honestly, I was blessed. My parents made our home phenomenal. Becky, my wife, her parents made her home phenomenal. But I'm seeing here on the chat, so many people are sharing that home was really hard spaces for them. So they're creating new homes for new communities for themselves and for others. And I think that's actually fantastic that people are doing that.
Yeah.
I feel like home has layers for me, layers of meaning. I mean, I was one of the people blessed to grow up in a home that was filled with safety and security and great love. And for a while, home was wherever mom and dad were. Even if they moved, it became home just because that's where they were. So that's one layer. And then as an adult, it felt like home is wherever you pull your car into the garage because you may move. And so home wasn't so much a place or a building, but it was just wherever you happen to, like the Stones said, you know, hang your hat. For me, it was pull the car in the garage. And the older I get, the less like home any of these spaces feel like. And you know, not to sound cheesy about it, but this psalm actually brings up so many songs, whether it's in part or just phrases. I mean, I thought of the music all the way through my rereading of this psalm. And one of them is, this world is not my home. I'm just passing through. And increasingly, the older I get, older than I care to admit, home is a concept of a really amazing future where the home has the ultimate safety and security, and it's whatever space Jesus creates for us. But that's where my heart is. And we have good lives here, many of us, not everybody, unfortunately, and some people have just lost their homes, even not very far away from where I'm calling in today. But increasingly, everything feels kind of temporary, and waiting for the ultimate home.
I think home for me is kind of what was said already, more about the presence of the people or community who make it feel like home. As I've gotten older, it's gotten to be less more like this is my house, whereas the people inside this house make it feel like home. So I view a home or a location that is home to someone as a space or a presence or environment where they feel like they have this support, and it's a place where the presence and just the space that they can be in is that place for them. So I think it's about a community and atmosphere, and I think a building too, obviously, but I think it's more about the presence that you're in.
Sam, what are you
I like
thinking?
that.
Yeah, no, I'm connecting with everything everyone is saying here. Same as I think maybe Joyce, you're the one who said that your family moved a lot. Mine did too, a lot. So I have no sense of place as home. Really, I have a sense of family. My parents did a very good job of making sure that home. Our presence at home, wherever they were with them, was a sweet, wonderful, affirming, just a great experience in every way. So they did a very good job of making sure that their presence felt like home. But a place for me has never felt quite as oh, I belong here, or this is my space. You know, I do want to say add to this that sometimes there's like an intangible sense that you belong in a place. Sometimes I like to describe church sometimes feeling like this place feels like home, even if you don't have a lot of connections. It just feels like something that's happening here feels like there's a presence of the holy that welcomes me, that nurtures me, that encourages me. So and last thing I want to say about the psalm is that there's something profoundly joy. The psalmist is so excited about where they're going to. You know, there's like a fist pumping in the air. Wow, I get to go there, and I just wonder what place for us feels like that right now. Like where's a place that feels like I can't wait to get there.
I think Yeah, I think a couple thoughts. One, and Lisa kind of got us going on this track of, I think there's home as in our personal homes. But then this psalm is not really talking about our personal homes. It's talking about our spiritual family and community, which I think is interesting.
Yes.
That I think that distinction, Lisa, I think you made is an important one, because we do value things like privacy or space that our homes create, which is a healthy and a needful thing. But this psalm really is talking about the home that we all share together, kind of in a collective sense, which I think is interesting and instructive. And I'm just struck again. I'm going to come back to. I'm just struck by how. And actually, my mom and dad and I were talking. I was on the phone with them when I was walking this morning. We were talking a little bit about how important it is for the church, a local congregation, to be this incredibly welcome, opening, secure place for everybody. And I can't reveal what we were talking about. We were talking about people that we know in our lives who have lived really hard lives, mental illness and broken relationships and I use the phrase, it's just hard to be human this morning. I said, Mom and Dad, it is not easy to be a human being. It's hard. And I'm struck, and this is a little bit of a push, and maybe my conversation partners can pull me back, but I'm really discouraged about the impulses of a lot of the Christian church in America right now. That seems to really want the ability and the freedom to exclude people. Like, that's a pretty big deal. And they want in the name of religious liberty the ability to be as exclusive as possible. And my impulse is I'm not a lawyer, so I don't understand all the legalities, but I am somebody that cares deeply about the impulses of Jesus. And I'm deeply concerned about a church that seems to pride itself on its ability to always be wanting the right to exclude. Sort of this I don't know. It concerns me, and I think the church has a well-earned reputation as a house of exclusion. And I'm not trying to drag the conversation down, friends, but I feel like a psalm like this has to push us prophetically. And I cannot read Psalm 84 without going to Jesus turning over the tables, which that didn't have anything to do with money or even buying it. That had to do with a system of exclusion from the house of God. Yes. And again, it's hard to be human. And to me, to your point, Sam, about the church has to be the single most hospitable place on the planet, or it's failed. It's not it's not a home of Jesus. I just don't. The older I get, I just don't see it. Just don't see it.
I think the problem is, Alex, and I resonate entirely with you. I think the problem is that we have this image of the church globally that has in its history, unfortunately, done many things in the name of God, but is not of God. And there's always, and I think it's, as you talk about the prophetic call, I think there is always a responsibility amongst a few people to kind of step up, and there's always been there, and there always will be people who are saying, this is actually what God is calling us to, not just this general space inside it. So I'm with you on that. I think it behooves us to kind of create those spaces that actually are safe, that is what is more reflective of what God calls us to, the kind of home that says everybody's welcome. It's like, I don't know if you felt this way, but years ago when I was a kid, it was actually much easier to have people come over to your house. Today, people have to prep and they have to let you know. But years ago, it was like, that was the way it was. And I think I look at this home as like God saying, there's no prep, just come. And everyone's welcome all the time. And I think we've made a place of church sometimes, our local church is a space of where we are like, you have to let us know before you come. In fact, actually, you now need to register. Yeah.
So Alex, who benefits from making our churches exclusive clubs? I mean, how does that benefit anyone? Is it that I'm more likely to get to heaven if there are fewer people in line? I mean, that's what I'm trying to figure out. Is it Is it just that we're more comfortable around people who are like us, think like us, dress like us, who are somehow acceptable? So let's make it a club for people who are just like us? Or is it really these people don't fit in with us and don't deserve to be here? Or is it, I feel better about myself? I don't know. Who benefits from us not being welcoming?
Could I suggest, I have no idea what situation Alex was talking about, but I can imagine the situations in which somebody is making someone feel like they don't belong. And part of that comes with churches that are willing to say, or people in church that are willing to say, you can come, but you can't really participate. You're not really one of us. You're a guest that we're wanting to change. And do you continue with the metaphor of home and like hospitality, when you're constantly like, how quickly do you let people be part of the situation that's happening in your house? You know, I feel much more at home if someone's letting me chop the vegetables in their kitchen with them or help move things around than if you just sit right here in this space and we'll bring things to you. And I don't know what's going on. I mean, I don't think some of our churches are literally like, get out of here. But a lot of when people feel excluded, it's from people they've been a part of and then, or they want to be a part of, and they are never really feeling like they're able to get in, to be part of the in-crowd conversations, the participation, things like that. Some of it is like, you don't believe what we believe, so get out. But I think more of it, at least when I observe, is saying, if you have some practices that we don't agree with, or we just don't like you very much, or we think you associate with people we don't like, you can come and no one's going to kick you out at the front door usually. I mean, there could be some of that, but that's what I think is partly going on. It's when we're, and that's with the hospitality thing and the people saying, are you really welcome? But are you really welcoming people, or are you just saying you sit in your particular spot? I don't know.
Yeah.
I had a teacher who explained something to us in college that actually changed the way I look at this. He was explaining how a lot of times we compare our ideals with the practices of someone else. So we are comparing what we are internalizing and believing, and we often will try to separate or exclude people based on their practices that may or may not be the demonstration of their ideals. And I thought that was interesting, because how often do we take time to get to know the ideals behind the practices, especially in church? And so that was something that changed the game.
Yeah.
When you think about, am I judging someone based on what they're actually doing or their beliefs behind that?
Mm-hmm.
That's good, Katie. I don't know, Joyce, the question you posed. You're making me think about, well, what's the motivation? I would have said a generation ago when I was a kid. When I was a kid, I can, the reluctance if someone was going through a divorce, the reluctance if someone was, oh, did you know, this person's a police officer and they take shifts on Sabbath. So there was, I can remember, and that was more of a moralistic, like, we can't have people here that are not like, but I think like the impulse is moralistic now, and it's more that we find security in creating sort of this idea of the way reality should be, and when people come into that and bring mud onto the carpet of my house, it changes that. Like, I think the political divisions in the country fit in that category. I think that there's this, I don't know, Rod said human impulse. I think there's this human impulse to try to move towards homogenization. Like, it's like, I want to be around people who are just like me. And I think social media and all of the, I think it's accelerated all this because it's allowed us just to hang out with people like us. So I'll say this, and I'm not trying to make this political, but I think politics helps us think about social things. So in Eastern Washington, there's this big push that we should separate from Western Washington, because Western Washington's a bunch of liberals and Eastern Washington's conservative. And I'm like, that's got to be the worst possible human impulse I can ever imagine. So like, if we don't agree with people, then we're just going to like separate. And then we're just going to keep separating down into, and then basically you're stuck with yourself.
Yeah.
And nobody else.
Passports.
And then nobody else. No. And I think, and I'm going to rant a little bit more. I also think that, Lisa, and I don't know how many square feet your parents were pulling off this operation with all these people in it, but square footage in America has gone from like 1,200 square feet to an average of 2,400. So it's gotten bigger and bigger. So where families had to like have 9 people sharing one, and the birth rate has declined, right? So it used to be that 9 people were sharing one bathroom, right? And we're all now everybody has their own room. Now everybody has their own suite. Now everybody's behind a gated community. Now everybody has a private pool. Now, I mean, at some point it's just, and so forgive me, it's this libertarian instinct that everybody should be a god unto themselves and nobody tells anybody else what to do. We don't want to interact with anybody else. And honestly, it's just the destruction of community. And I think it's sin. I don't know. I just think it's just this whole big deal towards we don't want to get along with each other. And I think it's sick. And I think we got to turn it around or we're in trouble.
Alex,
I'm going off the ledge.
If there is a swimming pool nearby, could you tell me where it is?
Yeah. No, it's like, and to me, you can't blame. I don't think you blame any one group or anyone. I think it's just human nature, and we're just, if we can't figure out how to get together and all share one bathroom, that's the line. We just, I mean, this is a flippin' iPhone. The first letter is I. We're just always, so I've got my own little universe over here. I think we're in trouble. I think we got to figure out how to hang out. And honestly, I want to say I'm going to rant, but it sickens me, honestly, that like conservatives and liberals, we can't worship together. We can't even talk and tell jokes anymore. It's like we're just going to divide up into our own individual. It's sick. And it's got to stop. We got to get a grip. Otherwise, we're not going to be human anymore. And we all want to be gods. And then no one's going to feel at home. So you know what? The only place teenagers feel at home anymore is when it's just them and this.
And it's horrible.
It's not good. So please, for the rest of this hour, I'm going to be quiet because I've said enough. I'll just blank my screen right now, Japhet. I'm going to stop my video right now.
You have to ask us our next question, though, Alex. Where will we go if you're not here to like trot us down?
That's true. That's true. So all this spills into the second third of the psalm, which is fascinating because it says, as we pass through the valley of Baca, which, Katie, means?
Weeping or tears.
Weeping.
Mm-hmm.
As we go through the valley of tears, we're going to be like springs of water. So we're going to make a difference. So that's the second section then. We're going to be transformative as we walk through this valley of tears. So let's talk about that a little bit. How can we be a valley of refreshing springs that overwhelm those tears?
I actually think that it takes a lot more energy to be a person, to belong to a community that actually is, joy instead of a community that actually is just weeping or critical. I think it requires like you have to be in the right headspace with God in order to be able to deal with that kind of stuff and keep your mind on God. And I think that's what this psalm is calling us to, is like, I'm longing to go to this place so that I can actually go through life, which sometimes is this Baca, this valley, but I will not be drawn into that side battle all the time. I think it takes your centering with God all the time.
What else? How do we bring rain that washes away the smoke of the fires? How do we?
So I'm not answering your question directly, Alex, but in this part of the psalm, I presumed that Jerusalem is both literal and figurative here. I mean, for these folks, this was a place to go for worship and for temple responsibilities, but they're also saying how if this is the place where God dwells, how lovely is your dwelling place. And then joy comes to those who have set their minds on that pilgrimage But I'm assuming they were talking both literal and figurative in the physical space and the eventual New Jerusalem. I don't know. Is that reading too much into it? Because if we're going to be refreshing springs, we got to have a short-term and a long-term look at this. It has to be short-term, welcoming and joy and strength and longing and fainting for the Lord, short-term in making all of these spaces joyful and welcoming to everyone, but also a long-term joy in the journey, right? And I don't know, is that reading too much into it?
I don't think so, Joyce.
No.
I think that's exactly what I read. How I understood this section of the passage is that this Valley of Baca is the human journey will include pain and tears, as Katie said, and mourning and sadness, and that is all part of the journey. But for people who know where they're headed, they know that this part of the journey can also be transformed by God into something that refreshes and helps us set the course. It can be a spring. Yeah. So I think about I know we've talked a lot about home, and that feels like destination conversation, but I think the psalmist is trying to draw attention to the fact that the journey is if not as important, it is the most important part of this experience. Is the path we're walking is this is what it's about, not just the Mount Zion destination. If I'm not able to find joy right now walking with God, then I've missed out on what on the joy of the journey. Last thing I want to say, by the way, is that as I read this too, I imagined, and maybe some of you did too, that Jesus made this trip too, right? Not just as an adult, but when he was a kid, as a 12-year-old, and that he would probably have been singing these songs too, and that he would have also been prepared for the deep sorrow and sadness that he knew he would experience, and was probably also ready to turn those into pools that bring life and healing.
I was texting with some friends last night about just some of the latest tragedies in our world, and some of those tragedies that seem like they have to do with the control of power in our country and what that looks like. And I just constantly go, as a historian, I think especially this past semester teaching American women in civil rights class, and these women, and especially Black women and Black Americans in the 19th century, who at the beginning of the American Revolution had rights that gradually got eroded in the North, as well as in the South, gradually got eroded till they were at the lowest point before the Civil War. The Civil War comes, there's constitutional amendments, things look better, there's Reconstruction. And then in 1877, when Reconstruction is repudiated, their rights get eroded again, over and over. This Supreme Court decision, this set of laws, this person in power, this person removed, and eroded again. Like, things don't always go in a nice, long, improving forever and ever. And so as we were kind of thinking about this pilgrimage that we're on, where we don't have control over, are there springs or are there not springs? Is the road rocky or not? Is there going to be a barrier? Is there physical danger? We are with each other. And I think part of how we bring springs to this valley of death is through our mutual encouragement and uplift of each other. And I look at these, especially the study that we got to do the first part of this year, to so many of these Black women and their faith and their hope, and continuing to go, even as the things they worked for didn't happen. The change they wanted didn't happen. They weren't in power. And Alex was talking to us a little bit before this about thinking about our desire for power. If me and my people aren't in charge and our policies aren't getting to be, whether it's in my church, whether it's at my employment, institutional employment, whether it's in my country, and me and the people I think are smart about stuff aren't getting our policies in place, it can feel discouraging, oh no, it's all just going to go to hell in a handbasket. And then sometimes it kind of is. It may be the actual valley of death. Sometimes maybe it's not the worst thing ever. I might just be feeling like it's not my stuff. But having the perspective of where we're going, like what our ultimate, the first part of this chapter, what our ultimate home is, and putting all of that into perspective is helpful for me. And the fact that we were about tell truth at the beginning, like I am still able to work for love and justice and make a difference where I'm at, even if the people in power are not the ones making policies the way I think they should, or the person at my work, or even my church, or whatever. So that's part of how I think by encouraging each other and by telling the truth about what we're actually able to do and how we're actually able to make the good life right now.
Lisa, you tipped us towards verse 10, which is the last turn. So appreciate a nice, beautiful segue there. But this very famous verse that I think is, it's fun to sing about, but what does it really mean? Better is one day in your courts than 1,000 elsewhere. I would rather be a doorkeeper in the house of my God than dwell in the tents of the wicked. What's going on there? It's a beautiful song, but I'm not sure it's quite so sweet and easy to live, that verse. And I'm curious, what do you make of it?
I think there's a beautiful level of humility and eagerness to have any kind of thread or any kind of connection at any level to belong. And it's actually, I believe it's actually what we are all created and have inside us, this desire to belong, and we'll do anything to belong. And so I think that it's a fantastic picture. Yeah.
There's a connotation with the word that they use for doorkeeper that I thought was interesting. It was to wait at the threshold or guard the threshold. And so what came to mind was somebody standing at the door as people are coming in. And what I thought about is, what is the role of that person standing at the door? Are they welcoming people in, or are they keeping people out? And so what I thought was interesting when he said he would rather, be in this position, I wondered, is this person wanting to be at the door to welcome people into God's presence? It just made me curious about what are they implying behind that, like, use of standing at the threshold of something.
It's interesting. Yeah, Katie, that's interesting. I thought of Jesus saying that he is the gate. And don't mess with Jesus. He will be the gate, because he's the gate that swings wide open. And when we get a hold of being the gate, we look for passports. We look for papers. We look for the right amount of money. We look for, could you apply before? Could we do some background checks on you? I really, anyway, so I like where you're going. I think that not only do I like it, I think that there's some powerful meaning in that, about that role of doorkeeper.
Yeah.
Sam, didn't you do a sermon on that metaphor of the gate at some point?
Wow, I can't believe you remember that, Alex. Thank you. Yes, I did. It was exactly that. It was a sermon about our proclivity to want to be the gatekeepers, and as you say, check passports, when Jesus has already told us that's not our role. It's not our work. It's his work. And our gate would be rusty and decrepit and always shut. His gate is always open. Hey, but I think I'm with Japhet on this. I think this is also a statement about humility, and just I think it's the psalmist saying, I want to find joy in the humble tasks. Someone said being this is a shout out to deacons. Not just the deacons, but to every person who has shown up for 30, 40 years to do the thing that God calls them to do every day, not just in their church, but in life and in their family, to do it with love and great joy. rather than pursuing some other path that may bring more glory and attention and admiration, but it's really not the work of God. So I think that's probably what this psalm is saying. I want to find joy in that.
Hey, Randy and
There's a
Judy actually
question.
asking a really great question. Oh yeah.
Japhet, that's exactly where I was going. They were asking a great question of why have a gate at all. I don't know, but maybe it's so we all have to be gatekeepers and can practice having to hold the door open.
Yeah.
I like that a lot. I've always felt that in communities, in churches, in buildings, and offices, whatever it may be, the people at the front are the most essential, most important, first encounter. They need to be the most open. And I actually believe, as Lisa said earlier, that I think it has to be because we're connected to God that we do that.
I think too, and this is in the John 15. Is it John 10 or John 15?
John 15 about the vines and the branches?
Yeah. No, the gate, the shepherd of the gate.
Oh, John 10, yeah.
John 10. I think that multiple of 5, I was close, and I was in the right book.
It's definitely not John 25.
Yeah. I think that I think part of the reason for the gate is that there are predators. And I think in this world, the open gate policy is Jesus was very defensive. He used the sword and he used the staff, the rod. He was very defensive at protecting people. And I think that's where, we don't have time to go into this, but I do think the one type of person or the one type of force that you do exclude and say no to are people that abuse people inside the gates. You don't. And those of us that have been in any kind of leadership position, pastoral or otherwise, have had to make those difficult decisions at times to say no. Predatory behavior, abusive behavior, no. So I do think, I think maybe it's less like a salvific gate, and I think there's more protective gates that you do. I think we'd be remiss, and I want to throw this out, get your reflection. I think we'd be remiss to not see it as a throwaway line, verse 12. It's the end. Because it makes a pretty bold claim. Blessed is the one who trusts in you. How so? How so?
I think that's only possible if you and when I read this, I saw a connection with Matthew 6 and seeking God's kingdom. But I think that this verse is actually from 10 all the way through 12. I think you can only be a blessing if you actually are living connected to God, and you're seeking God first in all things, and then you start to be good in other places. But it would be beautiful if we were always a blessing to everybody who turns to us, and not actually a thorn or critic or pain, but actually a real blessing.
And it's, Kate Bowler, who wrote Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies I Have Loved, her first academic book was called Blessed. And it was about, the prosperity gospel in modern evangelicalism and how we, all of our signs and bumpers, everything that says I'm blessed, and what that means really. And like her research amongst American Christians in delving into that. And I think this chapter has been saying, where are you blessed? You're blessed in the house of God. You're blessed with the people of God. You're blessed in the presence of God. It isn't about, wealth, or I got this great job, or yeah, we're blessed, we have a beautiful home. It's not that. It's I'm blessed when I'm in the presence of God. And so it really has oriented, I feel like, the whole chapter, what it means to be blessed in ways that are different than somehow how we use it when we kind of have those throwaway lines.
Alex, my translation that I'm looking at is the New Living Translation, and it doesn't use the word blessed, although I'm sure that's important and accurate, but it's what joy for those who trust in you. And so it kind of, to me, shines a bit of a light on the word blessed, is that where can joy be found? Joy isn't in stuff. Joy is in a relationship that is trusting with the Lord of Heaven's armies. To me, it was just a little bit different light on the word blessed. Lisa, I couldn't agree with you more. The prosperity gospel is just nonsense to me. It's being blessed is different than that.
Yeah, it's more in line with the beatitude, where in verse 4 and verse 5 and 12, the blessing is coming up all the time. And I think that's the echo that Jesus did when he used the same term to say, "Blessed are you." He's bringing them back to all the blessings in the First Testament. But yeah, I like that joy a lot.
And it's connected to trust. And where do you put is it misplaced trust? Is it well-placed trust? And the stress that comes in attempting to put trust in things that are unreliable. And we could have a whole nother hour on that, and material gain, certainly joy that you've called out. I think human power. You end up. Sorry, Sam. Go ahead.
No, I interrupted you.
No, I think it's the opposite of joy. I don't know what the opposite of joy is, but to me, it feels a lot like stress. It feels a lot like angst and frustration. And I think that when you attempt to put trust in things that are inherently not in the end worthy of trust, it's not helpful. And again, I think of all the things that we put trust in. Material things, political, there's all kinds of things, and it ends up not feeling very good. And when you come back and put your trust in God and Jesus, and you kind of spend your trust capital there, it has the effect of joy.
Yeah, yes, it does. I could not imagine. So here's how I think the psalmist is trying to end in how I read it. We could not have, everybody, I cannot imagine a more uncertain time at least in my life, all around. Fires, pandemic, and then you add to that I think when I hear just to dive into politics again, Alex, when I hear the politicians trying to draw our attention, I think they're trying to get our trust by promising that they ultimately will solve the problem. They've got a solution that we need to trust. And I think ultimately what the psalmist is saying, no matter what's happening in the world, God will always be enthroned in Zion. That's ultimately where your trust can be. Look to that. Even though, by the way, Katie, scholar, as I was reading this, it appears that the Temple Mount is actually one of the shortest hills in Israel. There's taller mountains. I think the psalmist is trying to express the sense that there's permanency in God with us, and God is always there, in Zion, dwelling with us. That ultimately is where our joy can be found. And that's where blessing is found, and trusting that.
And Sam, that's so beautiful. And maybe the fact that it is physically not the tallest mountain actually speaks powerfully to verse 10, which is if we think that following God is going to get us on the biggest mountain around, actually not. It's a humble mountain. It's not a triumphant sort of that triumphalism. It's a much quieter peak. It's a beautiful peak, but it's not the tallest peak as the world sees it. And I think that's good. I think that's good. And I think I think too. Paddy McCoy would mock me for what I'm about ready to say. I'm so glad he's not on this week.
Hang on, I'll text him.
Yeah, text him. But so. Because I keep talking about all this reading I'm doing about these American presidential biographies, and I'm on number 42 right now, so I'm almost to 43. So I'm almost done the project, and it's really interesting because one of my reflections on this experience is that in every one of these narratives, you start to find yourself in league with the person, right? Because it's written for, they're the protagonist sort of, and you're into it, and so you start to love them. You understand their family. It's fun. It's been fun to go on this ride, and you bond with these people, right? Because these are really well written. And then they all start doing stuff that's disappointing. Like every single one of them starts. You're like, oh no. And what I found myself, and I'm trying not to be cheesy. For anything else, I kind of wear my stuff on the sleeve. I find myself having to come back and to like read the scriptures. I'm like, I can't hang out there. Like I have this hunger for something to trust. I don't know if I'm making sense, but I'm like, reading this stack of books is really great. But in the end, those are not stories I can trust. It's interesting. And I'm just confessing to you my feelings about it is that I'm like, I just got to go grab a chapter 2 in the Gospels because I need someone I can trust. And that's not knocking those other humans because my goodness, we're all that way, right? I mean, I'm like not pointing fingers because we're all a mess, but he's not a mess. And I think that's where trust becomes joy, Joyce, which is the first 3 letters of your name, Joy.
Actually, my name was given to me by my grandfather, and it was based on the word rejoice. So I'll take it.
That's beautiful.
I have
Beautiful.
had several conversations about the need to trust. I was on about 8 different text chains last night when we received some news that's probably, sad for all of us, maybe more disturbing for some people in America than others. And just kind of being reminded that, again, that focus, you're talking, Alex, about focusing on these men, they're all men so far that you're reading about, the needed to get back to the word and who you can trust, right. The capital W word. And I feel like that when I'm thinking too much about the news and like, oh, what's it going to be, a disaster or not, that getting back to the word, trusting Jesus, reminding, like I just kept, even my friend who's not a believer, I was like, this is why having a hope, in something greater than what's happening right now is important for me, because otherwise you could just get all caught up like everything's a disaster and not be aware of how love is actually working in the world. And what is real in my life is I get to love people and I get to receive their love, and I get to practice forgiveness, and I get to work for justice where I'm at, and I get to make my little corner brighter. And that's real. And it is to do what you did that helps remind me of that, that my hope is not in the powers of this world.
Mm-hmm. And I see, I know we're over time, Japhet, but I see that again in verse 10, Lisa. That was the verse I focused on most, and as I reflected, is that it's not dwelling in the courts of the powerful. That does not go good places. And it doesn't mean we don't care about those things, and it doesn't, et cetera. But I think there's just so much danger in the scramble for power, and even religious people, even people of God, even Christians have got to be careful about slipping instantly into seizing every opportunity as a moment to gain power. It destroys religious communities, and I think it's currently really threatening the church in my part of the globe.
Yeah.
Because that addiction to power it's the antithesis. It's the antithesis of the servant. And I just read a book recently. Humility is really the queen of all of the Christian virtues. Humility is really the queen of all because humility is what spawns all the other things that come out. And the quest for power and the obsession with that destroys the heart of what it means to follow Jesus, which is fundamental humility and a servant spirit. And walk down on the campus of Walla Walla University, not too far from here, and just study Jesus washing the feet. The sculpture of Jesus washing the feet. That is fundamentally the politics of Jesus right there. in that image.
Yes.
And to lose that,
yes.
and to lose that is to lose what's beautiful about Christianity.
Yes.
And I think that's where all the where the power comes from of following Jesus.
And to lose that is to compromise our witness too, Alex. I want to add that too.
Yeah.
When the world sees us as more interested in gaining influence and power rather than serving, I think they question the gospel itself, like what the heart of the gospel is.
Yeah, and it has, that's right, Sam, and it has lasting power, and I think that's why, I know we're running late, Japhet. I think that's like when you look at the testimony of someone like Martin Luther King Jr., who, and again, I contrast his life with, he was never elected president. He didn't have the right skin color. But the influence of a teaching of the teachings of King are ultimately lasting in a way that grabbing positions of power that's fleeting. Is that, it's fleeting, and I think that's, like you say, it compromises, and it's also fleeting. It feels great for a time. It's like any other addictive. It's like any other addictive behavior. It's awesome in the moment, and then it's. It's like having 5 scoops of ice cream when you're 50 years old right before bedtime, and it's awesome until it's not. Until it's not the next morning. And I think that's the right? I mean, isn't that the problem? Power's awesome for a very short period of time, and then it's not. And then it starts to rot your soul, and it gives you a bellyache like nothing, like nobody's business. It's sick.
Yeah.
But
Ice cream example sounded like the voice of experience, Alex.
I was speaking for a friend.
Uh-huh.
sharing for a friend.
And he was not talking about me.
Indeed. So, let me say a prayer and wrap this up, and then we'll go from there. Father in heaven, thank you for Psalm 84, a beautiful and powerful piece of music that has reminded us of our humanity, but more importantly of Jesus, who reveals to us everything that is important and wonderful about life, a true blessing. Thank you for the gift of these moments, this conversation. I pray that it would linger in our hearts and souls, and we pray this in his name. Amen.
Amen.
So quickly, One Project gathering in October. There's information on the One Project website. We've already begun to record and put together the preparations for the content. That should be amazing. Japhet, is there anything to say other than go to the website or the app and they can find out?
Yeah,
there?
I think. I mean, obviously, go to the website, but I think people should also sign up for the newsletter that we send out, the Top Connect, and you can do that on the One Project website so that you can get the latest information as we're sending out every Friday.
And that's the last full weekend of October. Second to last, 24, 25. Yeah. So that should be good. Any other? I don't know if there's any other announcements. I
think the only thing I just want to thank all the people who keep on supporting Saltworks and the One Project. It's just fantastic to see your gifts, and as Alex always says, take care of your churches and your communities first. But if you can help the One Project and Saltworks, it makes a difference. It means that we can do more things online and other places for free for other people around the world. So it's great. Thank you.
Someone said it's not clear how to participate in the John Project.
On the John Project, you go to the website, the One Project website, and there's a form down below. Just fill that in, and you can apply to belong to the John Project. We're going to create 6 teams. We're going to take the entire Gospel of John by January, hopefully, and turn loads of great resources, messages for every generation. So yeah, thanks, Lisa.
Hey, this afternoon, Joyce, you're going to be doing what?
I think we may drive out to Hood River and just see what's happening out there. See if there's windsurfing activity on the Columbia River Gorge. I bet it's going to be beautiful out there. Hopefully, there's enough of the smoke.
It was beautiful yesterday.
Oh, good. I'm glad to hear that,
beautiful
Katie.
yesterday. Yeah.
Oh, Joyce, man, I'd come crash your party. It's a 3-hour drive to go this way, though. I don't know. That'd be so much fun.
Could be worth it.
Oh man. Sam, what are you doing this afternoon?
So the surf is about my speed today, 3 to 4 feet waves. So I'm going surfing.
Ooh.
And then I'm going to do some sermon prep in the evening with whatever's left of me.
Oh man, that's awesome. Sharks, great sharks. Okay, who's next? Let's see. Lisa.
Whales.
Lisa.
Whales.
Lisa. Jaws. Lisa, what are you doing this afternoon?
Yeah, I was actually thinking I would be remiss as a Southerner here in the Southeast United States, not talking about front porches, because that when I think about the courts of God and we talk about the liminality of door spaces and where people feel welcome, right now with COVID, front porches and back patios are where we're getting to see people. Love my big, deep front porch in my 100-year-old house. And I have any moment now, I thought I was going to have to ditch you all in a second. My nieces who I haven't lived locally, who are 7, 9, and 11, and I haven't seen since July. We're going to do a quick stop by for some social distancing on the front porch. I hope that gets to happen this afternoon. So I think those spaces where we extend hospitality, even when it's maybe not always doesn't feel good to come into our home, are important. So I'm here for front porch court space.
And if Chattanooga wasn't so far away, I'd want to do that. Sam, I love you, but I don't want to go surfing. Sharks. Okay, Katie.
I'm going to go outside because I've missed blue sky and clean air. So I'm going outside at some point. I don't know what yet, but I'm going to do that. See some family, eat some good food. So
nice. I could invade your space because you're probably
you could. Yeah.
You're 2 miles away. So Pastor de Oliveira of Boulder, Colorado, USA. What are you doing this afternoon?
I'm taking Jonah in a couple of hours after lunch. I'm going to take him back to Boulder Church. Actually, he's going to spend the afternoon there working on setting up some stuff for a live stream, and so he's working with Pastor Jay on that. So that's what's this afternoon. And then I'm going to work on my one project sermon because I need to get that finished, and I'm really excited about it. And yeah.
Work, Sabbath, work.
Well, it's a beautiful work though.
No.
It's like
Sermon
like
prep is
football is a
not-
beautiful game, and so this is the beautiful work.
Yeah.
Sermon prep is essential work on Sabbath.
Oh, it's
Isn't
the
it?
best time, early in the morning, and then not after surfing though.
Yeah, let's be honest. Let's be honest, pastors. The minute that you're called or whatever, you start ministry, you literally do sermon prep every second
All
for the
the time.
rest of your life. Like you never are, your brain never shuts down. So, but take a Sabbath on Monday. Right. Yeah. Yeah. Welcome to. Sam and I were on the phone this week because we worked together, and he's like, "Wait a minute!" And he takes his phone and he's like taking pic. He's like, "There's sermon illustration right outside here. There's a couple of guys moving a tractor or something." Like,
Piano. There was a couple
piano.
of
They were
guys
moving a piano, like
rolling a piano down the street. That's like perfect sermon illustration. Perfect.
honestly,
Someday.
it's just never ends. So what I want to do this afternoon is go to Vermont. No. Yeah, the dream of my life, or not the dream. Come on, Alex. One of the things I've always wanted to do is to go hang out in New England in the fall. I've never been to Boston in the fall. The VeggieTales song.
That would be beautiful.
Yeah.
it's
So
beautiful.
I was searching on VRBO. One night I couldn't go to sleep, and I found this little farmhouse in the middle of nowhere. There's leaves all. I was like, so that's but that's not going to happen right now. But one of these falls, Joyce, I'm honestly going to take 3 weeks off of work. I'm going to finally do it. I'm going to go hang out, get a stack of books, and go hang out in Vermont in the fall. That's really what I want to do. But probably I will.
I would recommend I would recommend if you're going to take stack books, you should get some books on the presidents of the United States. That would be fun.
It'd be a really good series.
So Alex,
be
What a
really
great
great.
idea, Japhet.
I think you could.
Thanks.
Alex, do you remember the VeggieTales song that came from? And I'm thinking maybe you should share it with us.
Yes.
Remember the song?
Let's hear it.
We
It's
are
the
the
pirates
pirates who
Yeah,
don't do
it's that
anything. Yeah. And
There you
we've
go.
never
Those
been
are
to
pretty good.
Boston.
Those
And
are
we've
good
never
when you
been
went
to
like
Boston in the fall. It's an awesome song. Hey, that may be the best of all the songs they ever wrote. I love the pirates.
No,
the
the
pirates that
bunny.
don't do anything.
The bunny is the best one. The bunny.
Oh, yeah.
Bunny's
Oh, no.
I don't know.
Bunny's
Oh,
good.
where
Bunny's
is my
really
hairbrush?
know.
Was epic.
good. Hairbrush.
Oh, that's true. That's a good one too.
Yes.
In fact, I shouldn't say this, but I'm going to. When my daughter, who's 14, can't find her hairbrush around the house, I'm the total annoying middle-aged dad because I start saying, "Oh, where?" Yeah, it doesn't go over. It's very non-productive, very very unhelpful. But I think we're just gonna go outside, and for some of you around the world, you have no idea what it's like just to be able to say that we get to go outside. It's so
deal.
amazing. This is the first.
That's good.
It's awesome outside. It's like there's air. As Sam said this week, it's not a solid. It's actually back to a gas. Air is now back to a gas instead of a solid, which is very good, Sam. That's a good line.
Well, blessings to everyone then.
Yeah,
and
everybody.
have an amazing